All right, and welcome to another episode of the Political Playbook. I'm Wyatt, and this is my co-host Darren. And today we've got a jam-packed docket for you guys. I think we're going to start off with there is great news if you're an American, and even better news if you're a Catholic. We have an American Pope. Praise be. Pope Leo XIV, born in Chicago in 1955. He's pretty much been all over the world, mostly in Europe and Latin America. He's been in Peru since the 80s, so this is, rather new about, like we've never really had a Latin American pope or an American pope, so like everyone kind of wins here, right? So
hmm
Darren, what is your first impression of Pope Leo? Like, do you know anything? Do you have any insights? Do you know how Catholics at large are taking him in? Like, what are your thoughts?
I know very little about him, and and I follow the Vatican type, Catholic type stuff pretty loosely, anyways. So, I really only know like I can only recognize the really big names over here in the U.S. and then like some abroad. So I honestly have never even heard of the dude until recently. So he
Right.
was a bit of a dark horse. I'm very proud that he's from the U.S. I like that a lot. I'm very proud of that. Even if maybe he's not the perfect ideal one I would have picked. Uh, you know, he for me. But I do think he is a good one. I think honestly he probably reflects what the faith is most accurately
Yes.
because from what I've seen, he doesn't seem to be near as liberal as Pope Francis, even though he might be considered a progressive-ish, according to the standards of the church. So I do like that they're taking a bit of a step back, if not a full blown retreat. And then I do like he's more conservative and a little more staunch on certain issues. It seems in regard to homosexuality and stuff, he seems to be a little more traditional in his tone. So I
Yes.
do appreciate that. And honestly, like, I mean, I think this guy is probably the best reflection of what the faith really is. I mean, basically like pro humane treatment of immigrants, yada yada, anti homosexuality, yada yada. I mean that's probably the perfect middle ground of where the Pope ought to be, based on my understanding of the church. But how about you? What do you feel about this guy relative to Pope Francis? Is he kind of what you were wanting?
Yes, I think this is exactly what the church needed. So, I think Leo has a pretty unique job here, right? He's trying to kind of bridge the gap between like, the conservative hardliners and the progressive cardinals within the faith, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
there are a couple of different factions based on a bunch of different issues. So you have people who are trying to, express like love and compassion, but also at, not sacrificing doctrine or like, so it's an impossible job. I mean, being a pope, I mean, you and I can't imagine how hard of a job that is, right? I mean, you have to be, think about it. You have to be a president, right? Essentially, you have to be a diplomat. You're the spiritual leader of a billion people, right? And then you're a Fortune 500 CEO also. Like the
Oh yeah.
administrative, like you have to be a living saint for goodness sake. You know what I mean? Like this is an unbelievable ask, right? And I think that, they picked a guy that's going to do whatever he can to meet that standard, right? And I think he's the perfect guy to kind of bridge that gap, like you said, between those, conservative hardliners. Like, for example, he's against women taking up any form of like clerical um, position within the church, right?
Oh yeah, and
And
that's
you,
just Catholic doctrine. I mean, all these people, all these like outside commentators saying, "Oh, Pope Francis didn't let there be women priests." It's like, well, if he did, he would have been a heretic because it's like explicit that that can never happen.
yes,
And
and this guy, by the way, is about as understanding of Catholic doctrine as you can get. He has a doctorate in canon law, like Catholic canon. Like
oh
this
wow,
in terms of like understanding what Catholic doctrine means, not just for when it was written, but like what it means like after all the, councils revisited it. Like what does it mean to be a modern Catholic? I mean, this guy, I mean, it doesn't get much more like researched and well read than this guy. So, I think that's where you get a bunch of the the focuses on justice and stuff like that, but also like we're not sacrificing like eternal doctrine from their perspective, right? Like he's against like gender ideology as another example, you know, like
oh yeah, yeah.
um, but
And
also like oh, go ahead, sorry.
oh well, and you know, I would imagine, if Pope Francis were pressed or something, he probably would be against that too. I just don't have any recollection of him coming out and saying it in explicit terms. So it is good that we have kind of a I guess the Catholics have a champion for the more modern issues. So I'm a fan thus far. I think he'll be a pretty good, accurate representation of the faith.
Yeah, I think so too. And as I start and continue my journey to becoming Catholic, I am very very excited. But like you said, these commentators that have been weighing in on this guy, I mean, it doesn't take long for these people to start quote mining, searching through all the different avenues of the internet to find any tweet this guy ever retweeted, any post he ever made, any homily he ever gave. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that this dude is going to be liked by everybody. I mean, for everything. I mean, like I said, it's an impossible standard to uphold. But I think overall, I mean, he kind of upholds what it means to be, a loving, compassionate Catholic. You know?
I think so too. And he I like that in speaking of like quote mining, they're like digging through all the stuff he's ever said and done. People were going through his Twitter, and I guess he quote tweeted JD Vance and said that he was wrong, on the whole Ordo Amoris debacle
Right, right.
of a few months ago. So and the fact that he's willing to dunk on JD Vance, that's a win in my book.
Well, and he definitely dunked on Trump immigration in the first term. He said something. Well, he retweeted something along the lines of, is your conscience not concerned? Like that's what he said about Trump. And honestly, I would say that he might be on kind of a kind of a crash line, like a crash path with the American Protestants and the American right, just because the dude is not going to back down from Catholic teaching on like human dignity and respect for the foreigner. Like he's just not. At least not in anything we've seen so far. I mean, that may change, but like this dude doesn't get more pro foreigner, like pro human. He's pro DACA. Like I mean, what more can you ask for? You know?
Yeah, I like that about him. I like because he's not. I don't. He's obvious. I've already seen the left wingers get mad that it wasn't. That Filipino guy, Tagle, or one
Right.
of the African cardinals. And I think that's about where the Pope should be. I don't think he should appeal far too much to any partisans. I think he should be, beyond that. And I think the morality he professes, to make, if it's going to be profound, it shouldn't, line itself up with being a Republican or being a Democrat. It should be kind of like beyond that.
No,
So
and I think that, do you think that he hits that standard? Because I think that's what you said is 100% what he beats. He's kind of above the fray a little bit. At least it seems to me.
that's definitely the impression I'm getting thus far. Well, time will tell, but if it kind of stays how I think it is going, then I think he'll definitely hit that sweet spot of where he needs to be. So I'm very optimistic about this guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to put a label on him, I mean, this guy seems like, because people are trying to call him like the woke pope, and I don't really see I don't see any evidence for any of that. But I do see, like, if anything, I feel like this guy is just a never Trump Republican pope. Like he's one of these like moderate, left wing, right wing on certain issues, Pope. And I think that's, like you said, that's kind of where he needs to be whenever you're going to be leading 1 billion people, you know?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. Uh, yeah, I mean, there's like worldwide considerations he has to, take into account, and so I'm hoping actually that he won't be, even as an American Pope. I hope he won't be too focused on America. I hope he feels like a globally oriented, even though we are the superpower and like probably the most relevant country. I hopefully he does take a global approach.
Me as well. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see. So moving on to this one will be a short and sweet docket. Immigration. So as everyone has been seeing, there's been pretty overt stretches of the executive branch's efforts to meet the deportation numbers that they want to meet, right? The problem, and I'm going to try and steel man it here, Darren, you let me know, but the problem that they're having is that they can grab and round up people and hold them in detention centers as much as they want. But in order to actually execute a deportation the way you're supposed to, they don't have enough judges to carry out more than maximum 3 million deportations during his term. And so what they're, you know, thinking about doing is suspending due process for all illegal undocumented immigrants. And what they hope that this will do it'll basically fast track their ability to deport immigrants. And a new strategy that they're trying to go with is they're trying to deport these immigrants from America instead of their home country to an entire several continents away. Like I'm sure you saw, they're considering sending these people to Libya.
Oh
So,
yeah. And it's
um,
funny because like I heard that since Libya is basically a failed state, there are actually like competing factions for like, for who's in charge. I think neither of them had signed on to this. So
yeah, no,
like
no,
neither of the two.
that's the most hilarious part. Is I want to say it was Marco Rubio who announced this. He said, "Listen, the further we can get these people away, the better. Like we've got plans with Libya right now." And the problem with saying that is, like you said, Libya is a failed state. There is no official government, right? Like
Yeah.
there are at least minimum two governments in Libya, right? So we are dealing with and both of them, when asked, "Hey, are you talking with the Trump administration about hosting uh, undocumented immigrants here?" They go, "What are you talking about?" Like they have no idea what the heck.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think it's funny. So when Donald Trump is asked, he's doing an interview, and they ask him point blank, "Hey, do you think you can suspend due process?" I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I mean, that's his answers. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Here, I mean, I'll just go ahead and play the clip.
Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment says
I don't know. It seems It might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth, some of the worst, most dangerous people on earth. And I was elected to get them the hell out of here, and the courts are holding me from doing it.
And then Stephen Miller comes up, and Stephen Miller says,
well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the day...
And now, Darren, you can't possibly support suspending habeas corpus, right? Like that's got to just be bonkers, right? Like even for you.
I have mixed feelings, but
come on.
My instinct, yeah, I know, yeah, this will rile you up a little. Majority of my instinct is that I'm okay with it. My only fear, though, is that in the hands of the current administration, they're gonna do things in a not so based way. So I think what I really worry about is all this, like, it'll just be used to further crack down on the Palestinian protester types. And, that's something that I totally oppose happening.
No, dude, you're thinking too small here. Trump is trying to get deportations to like 10 million. There's not 10 million Palestinian protesters. Like you're thinking. I mean, he's not just going to use the suspension of habeas corpus for Palestinian protesters, right? Like he's going to be using this for innocent illegal immigrants. Like,
well, I get that. I get that it's a really small pool of like foreign national Palestine protest attendees. That's just one of the side effects I worry about. In fact, what you listed, I'm actually more okay with in terms of just rounding people up and sending them out.
No trial.
I think there can be like do you speak English? Okay, no. Okay, then bye-bye.
Darren, under what circumstances would you ever say it's actually okay for the executive branch to like basically just round up whoever they think is foreign? And if you can't prove on the spot that you're an American citizen, then they can throw you out of the country without a trial. I mean, right? That's where we're heading, right?
Yeah, it sounds extreme, but drastic times come for.
How do you know? How do you know if somebody's? What do you mean drastic times? It's not like the wheels are about to fall off this country because of illegal immigrants, right? Like, it's not. I mean, give me a break. It's not like this is an actual invasion, right?
Well, it's certainly not a. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I probably would have been more likely to use language such as like invasion to really dramatic, but honestly I don't know how helpful it is because it doesn't really accurately describe what's going on. I don't think it's an invasion, but if they can in a Machiavellian fashion or cynical way say it is a if they can claim it's an invasion and if it can hold up, then I'm okay with if it works. I'm okay with them calling it that to get what they want.
Well, that's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you're risking. This has only been used what 4 times in the entire history of the United States, and you're gonna use it now because the process is too hard. Well, if the process is too hard, Darren, how about this? How about we just have more immigration judges or we have more border patrol or bigger detention centers? Like, I don't see how you can just look at this and be like, okay, we want more deportations, like physical, like leave the country deportations. But there's a lot of like structural things blocking us. Okay, how about we just ignore all of those? How about, like you can't. There would be no such charity given to a Biden administration if he were trying to do something you didn't like, right? You would be like, hey, look, Article 2, Section 7, Paragraph B, it says you have to go through this and this. You would not allow for such a thing. You know
Well,
what I mean?
if it was something I didn't like, then I would try to weaponize the law against them. But I'll if it's something I do like, I'll try to circumvent the law.
Well, here's sort of my beef. We're trying to weaponize the law against Trump, kind of beat them with their own stick because it never fails. When anytime anything progressive gets done, they're going to take it to the Supreme Court, and they're going to hope that the Supreme Court is going to use the law to overturn whatever. Think the student loan forgiveness, right? That's the textbook. That's the roadmap, right? Well, the
Mm-hmm.
problem is that whenever the Democrats do that, and they get it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court rules 9-0, 9-0. Hey, you can't fucking do this, right? And then Trump goes, "You and what army's gonna stop me?" You know what I mean? Like we're not bringing this dude back. Get the hell out of here, and if that's not, and I don't like to use this word because I think it's kind of larpy and cringe, but like it's that. I mean, that's tyranny, right? The judicial branch exercises a check on the executive branch, and the executive branch ignores it because there is no mechanism for the Supreme Court to carry out their authority other than just the honor system. That's the scary part.
I don't know. I guess I'm just so like instinctively, I'm more inclined to kind of favor autocracy. So
Oh my
I
God.
I mean, I see this kind of as a move in the right direction almost. But you know what though, if I'm being fair, I do fear that in Trump's hands, it it might not be worth it because I think ultimately, Trump is the type. There's no follow through with him, so he would like do all this really cool fascistic, like dictatorial stuff, and he wouldn't get any results after having done it. Like he would be the type to actually like suspend habeas corpus or whatever, and then he would like he'd deport less than Biden still. I just see him as like really incompetent in this regard. So that is my fear. Maybe it's not even worth him going through the pain and messing it up for a future aspiring dictator by being so incompetent.
Well, I mean, listen, you're not going to get any pushback from me by calling him incompetent. Just from a strict administrator standpoint, right? I mean, think back to his first term. What did he do that was lasting other than the tax cut? I mean, nothing, right? I mean, he didn't.
Oh yeah, no, nothing I can think of, and
There,
pretty much almost everything he did, I would probably say it was fairly negative, to be honest. So
right, and I mean, you got to think, like Obama had Obamacare, and even Biden had the Chips and the Science Act, which hopefully we get at least some of that. And honestly, the American Rescue Plan wasn't, that terrible. But listen, so I understand you're saying that, like, listen, even if he did do this, he's too incompetent to actually do anything. But you got to keep in mind, much of our entire like structure of our government is based on just norms, right? So basically, I call it the honor system, right? Like,
Mhm.
and Trump has no care for any of these. He invoked the Alien and Enemies Act because he was like, "Oh, these judges might not hear these dudes' trial for a year. Yeah, I'm just gonna kick them out of the country right now." Like that's dangerous. All right, you shouldn't do that, right? You got to give these people a trial. All right, you got to go through it. And listen, if you want more judges, I'm sure a Republican majority Senate would be happy to give it to you. You know what I mean? Like, I
You
just
would think, and I think they probably could get it. So I think before like any really crazy action is taken, they should try to do it. The best way, the most legal way, get more judges, get more ICE funding, whatever. But ultimately, when that doesn't work or produce the results that they want, I'm not entirely opposed to the suspension of habeas corpus.
That is so nuts. That is so nuts to me.
Yeah, I will say though, honestly though, like Trump is so incompetent that I almost my 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 gut feeling though is that if he actually did do that, while it would be kind of cool, kind of based in the moment, I think he's just so incompetent that it would actually just make things worse because, you know, I just don't I just can't see him actually getting the deportations all that high. I think deportations would remain relatively low, and I think it would be all for naught basically. So I'm kind of ambivalent on it, mixed feelings.
So basically, you're all for it. You just think that he's too stupid to actually carry out the authoritarianism. That's what you're saying.
Yes, yeah,
What a statement. I mean, listen, I appreciate that you at least had the courtesy to dress it up in icing and, all sorts of, beautiful things so that way it didn't make you sound like a maniac, right? At least I have that appreciation. Not like the the chief of staff Stephen Miller, who just flat out said, "Yeah, no, we're considering it. Like it's an option." Like it's unbelievable. Well,
See, I don't know if do you even think Stephen Miller is genuine, or do you think he just knows it'll play well on TV, it'll get him in the news cycle? To me, he's a bit of a grub worm. I don't like Stephen Miller. I've heard things, I'm gonna assume they're true, but basically he's really only in it for himself. I've heard, like behind the scenes type things, reports. You can't really like put too much faith in these, but it's like, if he's not going to be able to get credit for something, he doesn't actually want to go through with X thing. So I think he's really just in it for building up his public profile.
yeah, I mean, listen, there is a part of this that I think he's just out there just trolling a little bit, or he doesn't care. Like the outcome is not really that relevant to him, you know.
Oh yeah.
But I do think that this is also kind of like a, because he's writing the immigration plan. Like he was very prevalent about immigration in the first term. So I think this is the issue I think he cares about, even though it seems like Trump might get most of the credit. But I do think that he's trying to like issue a warning to the judicial system as like, hey, if you stop us, like we'll just completely undermine your power. That's what I think. And listen, it's a bluff. I want to be very clear. My estimate is that this is not actually going to happen. But I think the threat is enough. That excuse that it wouldn't happen would never fly with a Democrat. You would never nobody would ever accept that as a reasonable excuse. But
Yeah.
it's just,
That's
um
so funny though I mean it from definitely from your perspective and like or more so the Democrats at large perspective, like yeah, that excuse just totally is not reasonable. But I mean, Trump really is just so incompetent that even if he did do all this
yeah, that's the
crazy
best case scenario, right? The best case scenario is he's bluffing because like that's where
yeah.
we're at. Now, I don't want to spend too much more time on this unless you've got something you're dying to say.
Oh no,
Um,
I think we fleshed it out. I
we've had some good laughs about this one, so we'll get to a bit of a more serious one, and I'll let you kick it off. But do you have any Middle Eastern news you'd like to share and give your take on?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because back on the theme of like, people's true intentions and, what to make of things and, are people bluffing? Are people lying to our faces? Are they just wanting media attention? If you've been following the news the past 2 days, I would say, maybe three, that there's been like this like series of like media leaks that Trump is unhappy with Netanyahu and is going to be sidelining him to a degree and wants an end to the war in Gaza, all that. Uh, I can't help but feel that. I mean, maybe, if Trump did have his ideal world where he wouldn't have to work very hard to get this outcome, I do think maybe he would like to wrap things up in Gaza just so he can get some credit for it, calm things down over in the Middle East because it's good for all his Gulf business partners. But it just feels like when the media would leak that Biden called Netanyahu an asshole, in like a I don't know, like under his breath, and then the media would like leak it. A staffer
Right.
would leak it, quote unquote, and it would, it was like a face-saving thing because, like, while the genocide is going on, at least Biden thought, Bibi was an asshole.
He said,
So,
"Ah, guy, wasn't that guy a real prick, huh? How about that, huh?"
yeah.
Like,
So I think this is more of the same, unfortunately. I think there might be a little more, I guess, substance to this because Trump did go to Saudi Arabia and he does seem to be kind of ignoring Israel. And, his Saudi Arabia visit was today. So we'll see as the week plays out. I think he has a few more stops in the region before he comes home. I don't know, maybe some good news. He removed sanctions on Syria, which Israel has been like bombing basically or doing covert ops in. But what do you think about all this? What do you think? Do you think is it like a strategic is it like a strategic leak where they're just trying to save face? Is there any real substance behind it? I think if I'm correct, I think you're more skeptical, right?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, listen, unless something of substance comes out, like, I mean, and here's the thing: the I'm going to put in massive air quotes, the leaks and the headlines that are coming out of this are just laughable. Like there were headlines that said that from like from Al Jazeera or from other, let's just say, questionable news sources that, like, oh, Trump's actually going to declare Palestine as a state, and it's like, okay, obviously that's not true, right? And obviously that's
Yeah.
just completely fabricated, right?
Yeah.
Like let's everyone just roll it back. Let's everyone just roll it back, right? I'm sure that there is some actual tension between him and BB because BB is a bit entitled, a bit, like, hey, you will do this, you will do this. And that doesn't really play well with Trump. So I think, and he's not very grateful, like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
uh, not even on the national stage. Like if it just screams like entitlement, like you will do this for me and my country. We will be, attacking Iran's nuclear sites. We will be, uh, I doubt that any of these are true. Now, despite the tension, I say that. But who knows if we see, like, for example, one of the things that did come out is for the first time in a long time Trump pulled the agreement that Saudi Arabia has to recognize Israel as a state. Like that's the only thing of substance we've really gotten.
Oh
um
yeah. Yeah. So I guess Saudi Arabia can we're gonna like give them or it's possible that we'll give them like a civilian nuclear program, kind of like to mirror Iran.
mhm.
So, and we've totally dropped that condition that Israel has to be recognized by them. So if that's true and if that's like actually going to go, if that actually happens, I think that's pretty darn big. I think
That
that's
is
in the
huge. And to the casual audience member that is listening, that's like, okay, who cares? Like whether or not they recognize Israel. Um, Listen, like, would you say that Saudi Arabia is like a major player in the Muslim world, like the Arab Muslim world, right?
Oh yeah,
A
yeah,
hundred percent.
yeah.
Like between both Sunni and Shia, obviously between Iran and uh Egypt and Saudi Arabia, right? Like Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest ones of the coalition that like recognizes Israel. And if they're able to pull that back, all it's going to do is make tensions a little bit harder for Israel over there. So, which means that they'll quit fucking around. That's what I mean. They'll quit. But who knows? Who knows what we'll get? I mean, there is no scenario where we completely decouple from Israel, though. I hate to burst your bubble, Darren. I hate to just break your heart, but it's
Oh
not it's
yeah.
not happening.
Well, it's so sad. I'm really under no illusions. I mean, we went through those, ever since October 7th. That it's been a really educating event because, we've seen it all play out under the Biden administration. There would be some leak that, would give you hope momentarily, but now, I've become wise. I think this is all I think this is basically Trump putting pressure on Netanyahu without actually doing anything, substantive to truly make him in the war. Because, Netanyahu's position as leader of Israel is actually kind of precarious because he's so disliked by like vast swaths of the public over there. So he's honestly, if too many people break off of his coalition, he could be ousted, and there's a chance he even ends up in jail over there because
Because of
before,
October 7th.
oh, yeah, yeah, October 7th, and then even before, I think he was facing down possible jail time because he kind of had I won't say like a January 6th type, but he kind of had his own like attempted like coup thing. I think he was like trying to overturn the power of like basically like the judicial branch in Israel.
Yeah, it's actually really funny. I think the Israelis have the opposite problem we have here in the United States, which is that their Congress and their people are generally speaking like way more conservative than relative to their judicial system. So like the judges over there evidently are just like massive, massive leftists. Relative to the population, relative to the. Not, I mean, I don't know if we'd consider them, but you understand what I mean.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, but just to roll back, and then I'll give you the next word, and we can move on or finish up here. Um, I was also one of those guys who fell for like the leaks during the Biden administration, like after October 7th. I was like, oh, Biden had apparently a really really angry call with Netanyahu. Like, oh God, let's freaking go, man. Let's yes, maybe we'll get some. And then sure enough, he'll walk out on a podium and he'll scream to all of America that like, all right, well, listen, Israel has a right to defend itself. I mean, they are our number one ally, guys. And then even when we lost Biden, immediately when we lost Biden, there were rumors sent out that Kamala Harris was the lone voice in the room speaking for the Palestinians, right? And then what did she do? Her first speech running for president was about how we need to defend Ukraine and we need to defend our allies' right to self-defense. So, I mean, I have fell for this leak stuff too many times. I will not be fooled again until something of substance changes. All right, you're not gonna get me, Darren.
Oh yeah, yeah. Unless he refuses to send weapons
Yes,
to Israel, I think that's the only way
or if
you
we get
can
a
really.
nuclear deal, or if I'm cool with either. If he redlines Netanyahu and says, we're allowing a civilian nuclear thing, but no like military development for Iran, and you're not gonna strike Iran's home soil. You're just not going to do it. I would be incredibly impressed. Now, Israel may still do it anyway. We'll have to find out. But either of those happens, and I'll have to basically be like, okay, I was wrong. Trump's better on Israel and Middle Eastern policy than I thought. I'll just have to bite that bullet.
Oh yeah, I'm more than willing to eat crow, and I would be happy to eat crow. I mean,
100%.
I would prefer to eat crow. It's just I don't think I will. Unfortunately, I think it'll. I'm hoping that he might surprise us, but if I'm being realistic, I don't see it happening. But there have been, I think we've basically, touched on the Israel portion of the Middle East topic. So I think if I am being charitable to him, I have seen good developments regarding Syria, and this is actually a step that I was wanting him to take. So I'm really pleased by this news. It came out today. He announced in his meeting with the Saudis, he did some big speech in front of them that they're going to we're going to remove the sanctions on Syria now that their new guy Al Shara, formerly known as Al Jolani, now that he's running things. I think this is great, honestly. I mean, because I think Syria, unless you give them some like economic relief, I don't think they're going to ever recover. And I don't think it does any good to just have all these militants killing each other. And, you can make an argument that instability can be good in certain respects because it keeps them from rising against us. But I don't think the instability in Syria has really helped us any. And if we can get them on our side, uh, I think that is good in terms of making the region more stable. I do. I have mixed feelings because I am sympathetic to Iran, but at least ostensibly this is a good move for us because it further isolates Iran if we can get Syria on our side. So I think if there's some investment there, Syria could become like good again. It could become a safe place to live in. It could be ran by Sunnis. Maybe a lot of these Syrian refugees in Europe would return. I'm sure that's something a lot of
Let's
Europeans
not go
would.
too far. Let's not, it's calm down, Darren.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that might be a tad unrealistic, but I think all in all this was a good move. I'm very pleased with it. How about you?
I don't have a huge uh dog in the fight, but I am all for peace and stability. So if you think that this gets us closer to that, then hey, I'm kind of all for it. We tend to agree a lot on foreign policy, but to just be totally like transparent, I kind of have to plead ignorance. I have not researched much of what's going on in Syria myself, but I did see the news today. I just have zero ability to discern if that's benefit or a drawback. No preference.
Well, you're certainly forgiven. I think honestly, so little is known about this Al Shara guy. He previously known as Al Jolani. He was this leader of this like ISIS breakaway, Al Qaeda breakaway sect. Hayat Tahrir al Sham. So I don't know how much he can be trusted. From the looks of it, he seems like he's more willing to play ball with the West than Assad was. So, by that token, I like him, and I'm no fan of Assad. So when he was ousted and all that, I'm fine seeing him go. My only fear is like, is it another Gaddafi situation where what comes after is worse? It's yet to be seen.
Right.
It, But I think things have been unstable over there in Syria since the fall of Assad. But I do feel like Shara al Shara. I do think he has good intentions, or at least he wants to you know establish order throughout the land. So
Yeah,
uh,
100%. Well, hey, who can root against that, you know?
oh yeah, oh yeah.
One of the things I did want to ask you, and we can be rather quick on this one. It's up to you. You know, Qatar, famous for funding universities here in the United States. They're actually the biggest donator, the biggest foreign donator, I should say, of universities in the United States. They don't do it for the goodness of their heart, right? And just like that, they also donated a rather expensive present to the president of the United States. A 400 million. You heard that right. $400 million luxury jetliner that will replace Air Force One, the current Air Force One. Um, Darren, let's go to the obvious follow up question here. Should he accept it? Because he says he has, and he said he's not changing his mind. Should he accept it? What are the implications of accepting a gift? Period. And then what about accepting a gift from Qatar of all places? So just
uh
whatever your take is on all of that, let's hash it out.
Okay. This one, I mean, okay. I know, like, what I'm supposed to say is like, absolutely not. That's just such an obvious conflict of interest. How could he do that? That's probably what I should be saying. And maybe if we lived in a world where, Trump wasn't around, and it was just maybe some other standard Republican, maybe I'd be saying that. I don't know. I feel like with Trump though, I mean, I don't know. It's almost like it's not even the worst thing he's done. So whatever. It's kind of like, I don't know, like, should he do it? Probably not, but it's almost like just throwing your hands up and being like, well, okay, it's Trump. So I don't know. I can't really articulate, like, obviously it's bad. It's not a good look, but I also
That is
just
putting
don't.
it lightly. That is putting it so light. But go ahead. Sorry.
But I mean, a part of me, like, I think it's maybe because I like Qatar so much. If it was like the Israelis, if it were the Israelis, giving him a giant jumbo jet, whatever, airplane for Air Force One, maybe then I'd have a little more problem with it. But I think the Qataris, I, I, I find them reasonable. They kind of like play both sides where they try to keep things calm with Iran. They try to keep things chill with us. We have an air base over there. We have good relations with them, even though many people in the U.S. like to, somehow, call them like Hamas supporters or what. I don't know. Uh,
Well, can you imagine why they do that, Darren? I mean, listen. Don't get me wrong. Like they get a worse rap more often than not than what people think that they are Hamas and Hezbollah. That's not what they are. When you look up like what Qatar does and like how they view themselves as essentially diplomats between Sunnis and Shias, right? Like you said, they play both sides of the fence here.
oh yeah.
But the problem with that is they are willing to host and diplomat or with pretty much anybody. I mean, Hezbollah, Iran. uh, I don't know if they've had the Taliban over as well or the Houthis. Like, but I mean, none of that would be incredibly shocking to me.
Well,
You
I'm
know,
okay with that though. I think as much if we could just with a snap of the finger, or just wipe people off the face of the earth that we don't like, maybe. And if it were like really easy and it came at a low cost, then maybe I'd be more opposed to having this state that is open to hosting these actors. But I think diplomacy is basically a good way to handle these things. So if they want to, I think Hamas does have like a small office over there, like the outside arm, the more diplomatic arm of Hamas. I mean, we have to talk to somebody, So if Qatar wants to host these people, I'm totally for it.
Well, listen, and I'm not condemning them for that. I apologize for the confusion. I was not saying that these people house well, they do house terrorists. I don't want to be unclear, but I'm not. I'm neutral on whether or not that's a good or a bad thing. Because I don't know what problem they've solved over there, but at least they're willing to have the conversations between the Muslim Brotherhood leaders, right? Um,
Oh yeah, oh
but
yeah.
but my issue with this bribe is number one, no such charity would be given. Yeah, and you're hearing me say that a lot because that's kind of how I'm starting to evaluate things, and I mean that even from the right. So, for example, Ben Shapiro, he issued probably I don't know an 8 minute long monologue about what he thought, and he was against it. I want to be very clear. He was very much against Trump taking this gift for obvious reasons for Ben Shapiro. To me, it's totally undermined by the fact that if Obama would have taken a $400 million jet bribe from Qatar, Ben Shapiro would have came unfucking glued. Like he'd have wrote a book about it. He'd have had Douglas Murray on to talk about, well, I've been there. And it just would have been completely absurd. And what would have happened if Biden would have taken a $400 million bribe from China? What would they have been saying?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Like, and how would you feel if it was a $400 million jet from Israel? You'd be calling him President BB. Like there's no, I'm not doing it. We have to oppose it for that such reason, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I know that that's probably what I'm supposed to say. That like, yes, to be principled, he should not accept it. But I don't know.
It's
I,
the
I
least
think.
of his sins. I agree. I do agree. This is not nearly the corruption scheme that even his crypto coin is.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah. His crypto is far worse
but still,
in some ways.
I more than anything am just uh, laughing and enjoying the absurdity of the fact that a president just took a $400 million gift from a foreign government. Honestly, depending on who you ask, is not even a strong ally. Like it's not maybe not even an ally at all. And his whole response was basically like it was a golf analogy, right? He's like, well, whenever they give you a putt, you got to take the putt. You know what I mean? And it's like, what the hell is this guy talking? It's such a Trump state. Like you said, you just got to shrug your shoulder. It's Trump. But
Yeah, I think honestly, I think you are right. If it was like someone I disliked, like China, Israel, I'd just be obviously more strongly against it. The problem is, I just like Qatar. Like I think that they're certainly not an enemy. I think they're definitely more of an asset to us. So I to and I think I'm also thinking like from a practical point of view. I think the Qatari leadership wants to get things wrapped up and Gaza. They definitely want regional stability. They don't want to foment anything bad like that. To that extent, I'm just more in favor of like if a bribe will get Trump to do a good thing, then let him take a bribe. you know, I mean, as terrible as that is, it's just how the man is. If he can be bribed into doing a humanitarian thing, I'm all for it.
you know, very pragmatic approach, man. And I'm not, no value judgment on it. I mean, heck, you should read some of our So like Abe Lincoln, for example, everyone likes to put him on a pedestal and act like he's holier than thou. Well, he basically had to bribe and, to get the votes to ratify the abolition of slavery, right? And all the, Reconstruction amendments. And I mean, he open corruption, and I mean blatant. It's kind of actually what opened the door to the Gilded Age. People don't like to admit that, but I mean, that's true. So, like, I'm not saying that it's not practical what you're saying. I'm just saying that, like, as an observer, I feel like I have to oppose it. But I do got to concede to you that, like, there could be positive outcomes at the end of this. So,
Yeah, and again, I totally see both sides. Like I guess that's the Kantian would say, we must just categorically be opposed to all, corruption, or which this obviously is. But what is it that is this an Obama quote? Because I've heard this like a million times. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Is that an Obama quote? Or is that something
I
much?
don't know. But that sounds like something Obama would
Yeah.
say.
I don't know if that like far precedes Obama, because but I feel like I've heard him say it. So for some reason, I'm like attributing it to Obama. But I, yeah, I think if it can make good outcomes, I'm basically for it.
Voltaire, according to Google.
Oh,
So,
Voltaire. Okay, okay.
well, so then I'll lead us in here. So basically, Scott Bessent has been walking around doing the media tour that basically said,
I was going to be in Switzerland to negotiate with the Swiss. Turns out the Chinese team is traveling through Europe, and they will be in Switzerland also. So we will meet on Saturday and Sunday. And look, we have shared interest that this isn't sustainable, as I said before, especially on the Chinese side. And, 145%, 125% is the equivalent of an embargo. We don't want to decouple. What we want is fair trade.
hey, listen, we gotta, this is not sustainable, right? This is not sustainable. We cannot keep going at this pace. And eventually he goes to Switzerland, right, to strike some sort of deal with, the UK, the Swiss, members of the EU, and then China happened to be there. Darren, can you believe our luck? They happened to be there.
Oh,
Um,
really?
Definitely not. Besant said, "I got to get the fuck over there and make a deal before the economy goes belly up." Right. Um, so anyway, we come to basically an on paper agreement. Like they're kind of working out the final details now, but basically they agreed in principle that they're going to lower tariffs and they're going to strike some sort of long term trade deal. And I want to be very clear. Scott Bessent made it very clear, right, in that clip we all just watched, that neither side wants to decouple from each other, right? And that they are both committed to a long-term relationship with each other. So I think the final deal that we're getting, as of today, is 30% on all goods from China to the United States. So that's a 30% tax Americans will now have to pay, and then 10% on pretty much all goods from the U.S. to China. So that's currently where we stand. And keep in mind, those are both down from about basically an embargo of 150%.
I tell you what, Trump has done an excellent job at making a 30% tariff against China seem reasonable. because from where it was, this seems like amazing. And I think, to my knowledge, there might be future adjustment. Like this is the rate it's at for 90 days, and they're gonna, like you said, make a deal. These might change. Hopefully, it goes even lower. Especially if he's applying it to just all goods. Hopefully, it goes even lower. I'm pleased because I think we're pulling back from a very bad thing, and the adults are taking charge, and they're remedying his mistakes, the Mad King's mistakes. So hopefully there's gonna,
Well,
I'm sure there'll be some face saving stuff, and I'm hoping like a better outcome will come out of all of it, and I don't think it's too late for that. So I think this is a very good
yes.
development. I'm just, it honestly, it was so relieving when I saw this. I was like, I was able to give a sigh of relief.
And and I will say, and Scott Besson is making it pretty clear that like this is just the beginning of talks. Like they are going to spend the next 4 years likely trying to figure out how to craft the perfect trade deal, right? Or perfect from each side's perspective. Obviously, every individual might have a problem with it, and it's going to hurt and benefit some more than others. Obviously, I am curious to get your read on this because there's been entire columns and major news articles written about this, about hey, who blinked first, like who called who first, and first of all, I like, just to give you mine, it doesn't matter that we called first. Like, I don't care that we cried uncle to China and said, okay, we got to fix this. But I am curious, like, I don't know how much you're into like the strong man and never appear weak and never blink and maximum pressure. But does it bother you that like the United States is the one that basically called for an end to this before China?
Honestly, it doesn't really bother me all that much. You know, in my personal life, if I make a mistake, I'm more than willing to just say, "Oop, I'm sorry about that. Let me remedy this in whatever way I can." And I think, I know this isn't how Trump feels, but I think it is actually kind of manly to just own up to whatever mistake you made and just try to rectify it and move on.
Well, he's not going to
Uh,
do that. He's going to make it out like China's the one that called him screaming and crying, right?
oh yeah, Trump does not have this virtue. Trump
Okay.
does not
Okay.
have this virtue. But if he can get some, face saving whatever and then just move on from it, you know, it sucks that, in some respect, it kind of sucks that we blinked first. How does it make us look? But on the other hand, if it makes us look a little bad for a little while, whatever, I just don't want to have to deal with the consequences of his stupidity. So let's just move on, get a good deal out of it, hopefully somewhere better than we were before April 2nd. If not, and it's roughly the same, call it a wash. Oh well, I just hope that it gets better. So to me, it's whatever. I just hope that our two countries can move on from it.
Well, so my worry here, and this is really, I mean, unless you have follow-up questions, I don't have too many more thoughts on this one, but my worry here is the incentive structure, right? That as a result of this. So you have, at the very beginning, before Trump even took office, we have a 10% tariff on China, and that's already ridiculously high, right? And then he goes absolutely buck wild, goes, I mean, straight to DEFCON 2. It was absolutely nuclear, and basically starts a fire in his own house. I mean, the GDP grinded to a halt, imports grind to a halt. And he messed up the economy for a solid month and a half. But now that he's done this, where he's like, look, we backed off our embargo. We decided we're gonna just stick to a 30% tariff, right? So now he started a fire. He put it out, put us in a worse position, and now what? I'm supposed to sing his praises? Like you said, a 30% tariff is freaking ludicrous. Like, it's not. This is
Yeah.
now. I'll grant it is not as ridiculous as an embargo, which at 145%. The reason I'm saying an embargo is because that's what Scott Bessent said. Right? It basically halted all trade, and
Oh yeah, yeah. It was really it. it was going to have, it already had a big impact, but if it were to continue, it would have been an impact that we really felt. So I'm glad that's over
Yeah,
for now.
and so like I'm done with the cycle of like, we have to now sing his praises because he now listen, if he gets us to a point that was better than, like you said, April 2nd or January 19th, which the day before he took over, then like I'll hey, I'll cheer him on, I'll root for him, but I will not incentivize this behavior with gratitude. I cannot do it. It just is not in me to. I mean, this is just rewarding like brash incompetence.
Yeah, that is a good point. Maybe I shouldn't be too quick to sing
Now
his
now we
praises or
we are
something.
better off. I'm not taking that away from him. We are better off than we were 30 days ago when he set a whole new set of rules. 100%.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you're probably right. I shouldn't be too quick to sing his praises if he goes back on it a little. It's like, yeah, instead of setting the whole house on fire, maybe only one room is going to get burnt up. So I guess I shouldn't be too happy yet, but I am happy. It, I'm actually surprised. I feel like this week, with the exception of maybe a few minor things, in the grand scheme of things, I think this has been the first really positive, few days we've had since the start of his presidency. I think it's all been really positive developments. Uh, yeah, especially if more of them get more fleshed out. So, especially, we didn't. I don't know if I really want to go into it all that much, but like India, Pakistan, they had like a 2 day war, and now it's over because the Trump admin basically, put pressure on both sides to just chill out. So, and they
Told him
did.
cut the shit. Cut the
Oh
shit.
yeah.
You sure it wasn't a ploy by Big Soap to, not kill all their customers?
I don't know if Big Soap has any customers, and oh,
Oh
I
gosh.
kid the Indians and Pakistanis. We love them. But yeah, yeah. I'm very glad that the war crisis was averted because that actually could have been the sparking point, ignition point for a much larger war. I mean, you think about it, India and Pakistan are right there next to China. So, what if, an Indian rocket Indian rocket made by the U.S. somehow flies into China and like kills like 20 Chinese civilians or something, like then we have China responding, and China is already like, Pakistan is like Israel to the U.S. Like Pakistan to China is like Israel to the U.S. They like have this like relationship for whatever reason. So
Huh. God, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that phone call. He says, Modi, you're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with. I can already hear it.
yeah, for real. Hey, you probably got that right. I mean, that's exactly
That's
how he
100%.
sounds. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if we want to get into it too much, but like if they did go to war, I'm totally team India. Like I don't have. It's not like I hate the Pakistanis or anything, but I'm when it comes between the Indians and the Pakistanis, I'm choosing India 99 times out of 100.
I gotcha. Well, I mean, I'll have to plead ignorance here. I have no idea who I wouldn't favor. Would I favor any of them? I don't know. Uh, I don't even have a gut feeling, to be completely honest with you. Now my inkling, I mean, and you help me out here if this is true or not true. My inkling is that it's incredibly likely that the United States would support India, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
oh yeah.
of
I,
the
I think
two.
Yeah, if we had to pick a side, I think we would definitely choose India, and we'd probably try to leverage them. If we could strengthen relationship with India, we could try and play them against China. So I think that would be the move,
And
because Pakistan, we've tried to like work with them in the past, especially when like back when the terror war days, hunting down Al Qaeda, and then like when we were fighting their neighbor, Afghanistan, when we were fighting the Taliban over there, Pakistan was not exceptionally helpful from like the documentaries I've watched. So I think, we're on okay terms with them. But to me, I don't even think there's a ton of value there. I don't think, they're not people we should be, ride or die for or anything.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And help me out. I'm just, these are two nuclear powers, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah, they both have
God, that's
nukes.
terrifying. God, that's, these are,
Yeah.
this is, well, then if Trump and them really de-escalated this, then, honestly, praise God because, a war doesn't have to go too far escalated, to reach nuclear war. Uh, you know, especially if you've got nothing to lose like a Pakistan or an India, so.
Oh yeah. I mean that really is terrifying because I mean these people really hate each other. I've seen like have you seen the TikTok? It went kind of viral. It's like of this like Pakistani child like they're in a line and they're like saying what they would do for Pakistan. He was like, I would die for Pakistan.
Yeah, I'm
It
gonna
is
include that clip. That's hilarious. Yes,
yeah.
I will give
And
my
then the
life.
instructor was like, "This is grape." Like her English wasn't. It was like a memeable moment because instead of great, she said grape. So I don't know. It was kind of cute in a morbid kind of way, but
Jesus.
yeah, yeah. I mean, not that I have anything really against Pakistanis. I just like India way more. I feel like India is more willing to work with us on things. So
Yeah, no, I agree. Well,